Have you ever wondered how a village blacksmith's son became the ruler of Italy, inspired millions, frightened opponents, and eventually helped lead his country into disaster? This is the fascinating and controversial story of Benito Mussolini, the founder of fascism and one of the most influential political leaders of the 20th century. So come with me now as we travel back to Italy in the late 19th century, a time of political turmoil, economic hardship, and growing dreams of national greatness. Benito Mussolini was born on July 29, 1883, in the small village of Predoppio in northern Italy. His father, Alessandro Mussolini, was a blacksmith and passionate socialist. His mother, Rosa Maltoni, was a schoolteacher who valued education and discipline. From an early age, young Benito showed intelligence, energy, and a rebellious personality. He was often argumentative and disliked authority. While many children accepted rules, Benito preferred challenging them. As he grew older, he developed a strong interest in politics and journalism. He became a teacher for a short time, but soon discovered that his true passion was writing and political activism. Now, let me ask you a question. How did a newspaper editor become the ruler of Italy? The answer begins with his talent for communication. Mussolini was a gifted writer and speaker. He knew how to capture attention and stir emotions. During his early years, he supported socialism and worked as a journalist for socialist newspapers. His fiery articles earned him both admirers and critics. However, the First World War changed everything. Many socialists opposed the war, but Mussolini believed Italy should participate. This disagreement led to his expulsion from the Socialist Party. From that moment, his political journey took a dramatic new direction. After the war ended in 1918, Italy faced enormous problems. Many soldiers returned home to unemployment. Inflation rose. Political violence increased. Many Italians felt disappointed because they believed their country had not received the rewards it deserved after the war. Mussolini recognized an opportunity. In 1919, he founded the Fascist movement. The movement promised national strength, order, unity, and economic recovery. Many Italians who feared political chaos began supporting him. Why did so many Italians support Mussolini? Because people living through uncertainty often seek leaders who promise stability and solutions. Mussolini projected confidence. He spoke of restoring Italy's greatness and ending political disorder. His followers became known as fascists. They organized rallies and demonstrations throughout the country. Then came one of the most important moments in Italian history. In October 1922, thousands of fascist supporters participated in the famous March on Rome. Although the march itself was less dramatic than later propaganda suggested, it created enormous political pressure. King Victor Emmanuel III ultimately invited Mussolini to form a government. At just 39 years old, Mussolini became Prime Minister of Italy. At first, many people believed he would govern within democratic institutions, but gradually he expanded his power. Political opposition weakened, press freedoms declined, independent institutions lost influence. Within a few years, Mussolini had transformed Italy into a dictatorship. He became known as Il Duce, meaning the leader. His leadership style was bold, energetic, and theatrical. He carefully crafted his public image. Photographs often showed him riding horses, flying aircraft, or standing confidently before large crowds. Interesting fact, Mussolini understood the power of media long before television became common. He carefully managed photographs, newspapers, and radio broadcasts to shape public opinion. What role did propaganda play in his success? A very important one. Propaganda helped create an image of Mussolini as a strong and decisive leader who could solve Italy's problems. Posters, newspapers, films, and speeches reinforced this message constantly. During the 1920s and early 1930s, Mussolini introduced public works projects, improved transportation systems, and promoted industrial development. Some Italians admired these efforts and believed he was modernizing the nation. Yet critics pointed out that political freedoms were disappearing. This reminds us that achievements in one area do not erase problems in another. Mussolini's personality was complex. He was ambitious, confident, charismatic, and highly determined. But he could also be stubborn, arrogant, and unwilling to accept criticism. One quotation often attributed to him is, "It is better to live one day as a lion than 100 years as a sheep." This phrase reflected his admiration for strength and bold action. Historians often cite it as an example of the aggressive political culture promoted by fascism. As his power grew, Mussolini began looking beyond Italy's borders. He dreamed of building a modern empire and restoring Italy's international prestige. This ambition influenced many of his foreign policy decisions. Then another important figure entered the story. His name was Adolf Hitler. What was the true nature of Mussolini's relationship with Hitler? At first, Mussolini did not fully trust Hitler. In fact, during the early years of Nazi Germany, Mussolini sometimes viewed the German leader with caution. Ironically, Hitler greatly admired Mussolini. Many historians believe Hitler learned important lessons from Mussolini's rise to power and his use of political symbolism. Over time, the relationship changed. As Germany grew stronger, Mussolini increasingly aligned Italy with Hitler's government. The two leaders eventually formed the Rome-Berlin Axis, creating a powerful political partnership that shaped European history during the 1930s. Photographs often showed them meeting together, discussing strategy, and presenting a united front to the world. Yet historians continue debating how equal this partnership truly was. Many believe that by the late 1930s, Hitler had become the dominant figure in the relationship. Then came the Second World War. Mussolini entered the conflict, hoping Italy would gain territory and prestige. Instead, the war exposed serious weaknesses within the Italian military and economy. Military setbacks increased. Public confidence declined. Resources became scarce. Could Mussolini have remained in power without the Second World War? Many historians think it is possible. Although his dictatorship faced criticism, the war dramatically accelerated his downfall by exposing failures that became impossible to hide. By 1943, the situation had become critical. Allied forces landed in Italy. Political support for Mussolini collapsed. Even members of his own government turned against him. He was removed from office and arrested. For many leaders, this would have been the end of the story. But history took another dramatic turn. German forces later rescued Mussolini and helped establish a new government in northern Italy, known as the Italian Social Republic. However, his power was greatly reduced. The confident ruler who once dominated Italian politics now depended heavily on German support. As the war neared its conclusion, his situation became increasingly desperate. In April 1945, Mussolini attempted to flee as Allied forces advanced and Fascist Italy collapsed. He was captured by Italian partisans. Shortly afterward, he died. His death symbolized the final collapse of fascist rule in Italy. The war in Europe ended only days later. Now let us consider some common myths. One popular myth suggests that Mussolini made the trains run on time. While transportation systems did improve in some areas, historians note that this claim was often exaggerated by fascist propaganda. Another misconception portrays him as a master strategist. In reality, many historians argue that several of his military decisions contributed significantly to Italy's wartime difficulties. So how do historians view Benito Mussolini today? Most scholars recognize him as one of the central figures in the development of modern authoritarian politics. They acknowledge his political skill, communication abilities, and influence on 20th century history. At the same time, they emphasize the dangers of dictatorship, suppression of freedom, aggressive nationalism, and unchecked political power. British historian Denis Mack-Smith once described Mussolini as a leader whose ambitions frequently exceeded his abilities. Many historians agree that his desire for glory ultimately contributed to his downfall. So what lessons can modern societies learn from his rise and fall? First, economic hardship and political instability can create opportunities for powerful leaders who promise simple solutions. Second, propaganda can strongly influence public opinion. Third, democratic institutions require constant protection. And finally, unchecked power can lead to dangerous consequences. Benito Mussolini began life as the son of a village blacksmith. He became a journalist, political activist, dictator, wartime leader, and one of the most controversial figures in modern history. His story is not merely about one man. It is about ambition, power, persuasion, ideology, and the choices societies make during times of uncertainty. And that is why, decades after his death, the story of Benito Mussolini continues to be studied, not as a model to follow, but as a historical lesson about leadership, power, and the importance of protecting freedom.